The room was an assault of yellow. Not a bright, cheerful yellow, but a sickly, jaundiced hue that seemed to absorb the light. It was as if the walls themselves were diseased, casting a pall over everything within. The wallpaper, old and brittle, clung to the walls like a shroud, its faded floral pattern a mockery of life. Each flower seemed to wither under the weight of time, their once vibrant colours now ghostly and pale. Dust motes danced in the weak rays of sun that slanted through the grimy window, illuminating the room's neglect. The window itself was a testament to years of abandonment, its glass clouded and streaked with dirt. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of mildew and decay. It was a smell that seemed to cling to my clothes, my skin, as if the room was trying to absorb me into its forgotten history. It was the kind of room that whispered forgotten secrets, a place where shadows lingered long after the light had faded. The corners were dark and foreboding, as if they held the memories of those who had once inhabited this space. I sat on the edge of the lumpy mattress, the only furniture besides a chipped vanity and a rickety wardrobe. The mattress sagged under my weight, springs creaking in protest, while the vanity's mirror was cracked, reflecting a distorted version of the room. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath my weight. Each sound seemed amplified in the stillness, echoing off the walls and adding to the room's eerie atmosphere. Something about this room felt wrong, deeply unsettling. It was as if the very air was charged with a sense of foreboding, a warning to leave while I still could. A shiver ran down my spine, and I pulled my threadbare sweater tighter around me. The chill in the room was more than just physical. It seemed to seep into my bones, making me feel cold from the inside out. It did little to dispel the growing unease that had taken root in my gut. The longer I stayed, the more I felt as though I was being watched, as if unseen eyes were tracking my every move. The room seemed alive, breathing with a malevolent energy that made my skin crawl. Shadows seemed to move in the corners of my vision, flickering just out of sight. I couldn't shake the feeling that the room was trying to tell me something, its silence a language of its own. I glanced around nervously, my heart pounding in my chest. Every creak, every whisper of movement set my nerves on edge. I knew I couldn't stay here much longer. The room's oppressive atmosphere was becoming unbearable. With a deep breath, I stood up from the mattress, determined to leave this place behind. The room seemed to resist, its shadows clinging to me as I moved towards the door. But I knew I had to escape, to break free from the yellow room's haunting grip. As I opened the door, a flood of light streamed in from the hallway, momentarily blinding me. I stepped out, leaving the yellow room and its secrets behind, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders as I closed the door on its eerie embrace. The first sign was subtle, easily dismissed. It was the kind of thing you might overlook in the hustle of daily life, a fleeting moment that barely registered in the mind. A slight ripple in the wallpaper, as if a breeze stirred behind its brittle surface. It was almost imperceptible, a gentle undulation that seemed to mock the stillness of the room. I paused, holding my breath, my gaze fixed on the spot. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat echoing in the silence. I strained my ears, listening for any sound that might explain the movement. The air was still, the room silent except for the frantic thumping of my own heart. The silence was oppressive, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket, suffocating and inescapable. I told myself it was just the age of the house, the settling of old bones. Houses like this, with their history and secrets, often made strange noises. It was a comforting lie, one I clung to desperately. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of something unseen lurking just beyond my perception. It was a prickling sensation at the back of my neck, a whisper of danger that refused to be ignored. Days turned into nights, each one colder, more unsettling than the last. Shadows seemed to creep and crawl, stretching their dark fingers across the walls, as if reaching for me. Sleep offered little respite, my dreams haunted by the suffocating yellow of the room. The colour seemed to seep into my subconscious, staining my thoughts with its oppressive hue. Each time I woke, I would find myself staring at the wall, searching for any sign of movement. My eyes would scan the wallpaper, looking for that telltale ripple, that subtle shift that had started it all. My reflection in the tarnished mirror seemed gaunt, my eyes wide and haunted. The person staring back at me was a stranger, someone worn down by fear and sleepless nights. Fear, insidious and relentless, was slowly tightening its grip. It was a constant presence, a shadow that followed me everywhere, whispering dark thoughts and feeding my paranoia. I knew I had to find the source of the disturbance, to confront whatever was hiding behind the wallpaper before it consumed me completely. Then I saw it. It was subtle at first, almost like a trick of the mind, but there it was, unmistakable, an almost imperceptible bulge in the pattern right at the center of a faded rose. It was as if the wallpaper itself was alive, breathing, watching. It pulsed with a slow rhythmic beat, like a lung-drawing breath. Each pulse seemed to synchronize with my own heartbeat, amplifying my fear. Panic welled up inside me, a scream stuck in my throat. My body was frozen, paralyzed by the sheer terror of the unknown. My mind, desperate for a rational explanation, latched onto the absurd, a trick of the light, a water stain drying unevenly. But deep down I knew it was something more sinister. I couldn't tear my gaze away. It was as if the eye had a magnetic pull, drawing me in, holding me captive. The eye, for that's what it was, stared back at me with an unnerving intensity. It felt like it was probing my very soul, uncovering my deepest fears. It was as if the room itself was watching, judging, its gaze heavy with malice. Sleep became impossible. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating me with their oppressive presence. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves against the window pane sent shivers down my spine. The house was alive with sounds that fed my growing paranoia. I was a prisoner in my own fear, trapped in a room that seemed to be closing in on me, breath by agonizing breath. The air grew thick, each inhale a struggle, each exhale a desperate plea for escape. The eye never blinked, never wavered, and neither did my terror. The whispers started subtly, faint at first, like the rustling of paper. I strained to hear, my heart pounding in my ears. They grew louder, more insistent, morphing into hushed voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Words, disjointed and filled with a chilling malice, swirled around me. I tried to block them out, to convince myself it was all in my head. But the voices persisted, growing louder, more insistent, weaving a tapestry of madness and despair. They spoke of things unseen, of ancient evils and unspeakable horrors. I clapped my hands over my ears, but the voices seeped through, echoing in the hollow chambers of my mind. They were driving me to the brink, these whispers from the abyss. Sleep, when it finally came, offered no escape. My dreams were a kaleidoscope of terror, filled with the pulsing eye and the insidious whispers. I woke with a gasp, bathed in a cold sweat, my heart racing. The room seemed to pulsate around me, the air thick with anticipation. That's when the wallpaper began to peel. It started slowly, a small tear near the floorboards, revealing a glimpse of something dark and viscous beneath. The tear widened, spreading across the wall with agonizing slowness, as if an unseen hand was peeling it back. The whispers intensified, becoming a cacophony of screams and pleas for mercy. My stomach churned with a primal fear I had never known. The stench hit me first, a putrid, earthy odor that spoke of decay and things best left undisturbed. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and I stumbled back, pressing myself against the opposite wall, as if trying to become one with it. I watched in horrified fascination as the wallpaper continued to peel away, revealing more of the writhing darkness beneath. A cold dread gripped me, a certainty that something monstrous was about to be unleashed. I knew then that I should run, flee this cursed place while I still could. But my limbs felt like lead, my body rooted to the spot by a terror so profound it transcended rational thought. I was caught in a nightmare, a helpless observer to my own demise. The room seemed to hold its breath, the whispers ceasing abruptly. The silence was deafening, broken only by the frantic beating of my own heart. Then with a sickening crack, the wall gave way. The darkness beneath the wallpaper surged forward, a torrent of writhing tendrils and pulsating flesh. I screamed, a raw, primal sound torn from the depths of my being, but my scream was swallowed by the suffocating darkness. It pressed against me, cold and slimy, its touch draining the warmth from my body. I thrashed against it, but it was no use. I was being pulled in, drawn inexorably towards the gaping maw that had opened in the wall. The world dissolved into a swirling vortex of darkness. The stench of decay filled my nostrils, choking me. I felt a searing pain as the darkness enveloped me, pulling me down into its depths. I was suffocating, drowning in a sea of cold, viscous terror. And then, as abruptly as it began, the sensation stopped. I lay gasping on a cold, hard surface, the darkness receding. I could see again, but the sight that greeted me was more terrifying than the darkness itself. I was inside the wall, not behind it, not pressed against it, but within it. I was encased in a pulsating organic chamber, the air thick with the stench of decay and the faint, sickly sweet aroma of honeysuckle. Tendrils of the same viscous substance that had pulled me in now pulsed around me, their touch strangely intimate. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. I was trapped. This thing, this creature, whatever it was, it had me. And as I stared into the pulsating darkness, a terrifying thought took root in my mind. Maybe this was where I belonged all along. The whispers returned, but they were different now. They no longer held malice, but a chilling sense of welcome. They spoke of unity, of becoming one with the darkness. And as I felt myself being drawn deeper into the embrace of the creature, I realized with a shudder that I no longer felt fear. Only a strange sense of acceptance, of coming home. The last thing I saw before the darkness consumed me entirely was the eye. It had found its home, and now it was mine. One final shuddering breath escaped my lips, a silent scream lost in the suffocating embrace of the wall. We were one.